Hey guys, tonight we're heading back. Not just back a few decades or even a few centuries, but way, way back. Back to the dusty heart of the ancient world, where groceries didn't come in branded boxes, where there were no checkout aisles or loyalty programs, and if you wanted flour, you'd better bring a scoop and know how to haggle. Picture this. The sun is blazing above the mud-brick skyline of a bustling city. You are, maybe, or Babylon. You're not here for sightseeing. You're here for chickpeas, or barley, or whatever's still left at the market that hasn't been trampled by goats or snatched up by early risers. It's loud. Smells like hot clay, drying herbs, and something fishy that's maybe not meant to smell like that. You pass stalls where merchants shout in Akkadian and scribes sit cross-legged with clay tablets, recording grain rations and debts. No cash registers here, just cuneiform, calculated in precise wedge-shaped marks. And good luck finding a shopping cart. You're carrying a basket woven, fraying at the edges, and inside are a handful of copper shekels or maybe just a goat to barter with. No one's scanning anything, but you are being watched. Every scoop you take from the lentil bin is weighed with a bronze weight and a suspicious stare at us. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know your location and local time in the comments. Yes, even if you're watching this from beneath your covers in Australia at 3:17 a.m. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step carefully around a pile of spilled millet. It crunches faintly beneath your sandals. You're not here to browse. There's no such thing. You've got a list scratched on a wax tablet and a half hour before the best sesame oil is gone. And this isn't just a few vendors with wagons. This is an institution. Archaeologists now believe that the markets of Mesopotamia, particularly in cities like Uruk, were meticulously structured. There were zones, one for grain, one for fish, one for tools. The clay tablets record transactions, weights, debts, deliveries, a proto-inventory system minus the spreadsheets. You pass under a tattered awning, ducking the swinging tail of a lamb carcass, and meet the eye of a young boy selling crushed date paste in hand-formed clay pots. No labels, no preservatives, just pulp and promise. He gestures to the pot, then points to his toothless grandmother, who is grinding something spicy looking behind him with a flat stone and alarming efficiency. You take the paste. You leave 3 tokens. The boy frowns, counts them twice, then nods. Not everything here is edible. There are sellers with brass pots, river-polished stones, reed baskets, and crude fishhooks carved from bone. You eye a stall selling dried herbs, mint, cumin, fenugreek, and wonder how many of these will end up in soup and how many will be tucked under pillows to ward off curses. Historians still argue whether these markets counted as true predecessors to the supermarket. There were no roofs overhead, no fixed prices, no buy one, get one figs. But you can't ignore the bones of something familiar here. Zoning, currency, inventory, specialization. You find yourself drawn to a stall where the grain is heaped high, sacks of barley and wheat, each labeled with a mark pressed in damp clay. You don't speak the language, but you recognize the rhythm. Wait, exchange, value, a nod, a grunt, a deal. Behind the stall is a weary woman with arms like pottery wheels and eyes like sun-baked stone. She's been measuring grain since before you were born, or at least before your sandals were worn through. She gestures to her scales. You pour. She nods. You're told to bring your own container next time. The sun climbs higher and so does the heat. You pass a man selling beer, not in bottles but in skin bladders tied at the neck with flax twine. He offers you a sip. You decline politely. It's a little early, even for Mesopotamia. And somewhere not far from here, someone is already imagining something more efficient. Less walking, less haggling, more shelves. But for now, the bazaar is its own labyrinth. Every step a new scent, every corner a fresh shout. You pause near a vendor selling dried fish, salted and bound with twine, and wonder what happens to the leftovers. Probably the same thing that happens today, they're rebranded tomorrow. Possibly as aged delicacies. The noise is constant. Shuffling, shouting, wheeling, the low hum of commerce. But you're calm. You're glowing with the rhythm of routine. You're part of an ancient dance. One that thousands of years later will look wildly different and eerily the same. There's no loyalty card. no checkout lane. But there's a familiarity here. The clink of weights, the shuffle of fabric, the decision between two nearly identical things. The small, human anxiety of choosing wrong. You've made your purchases. Your arms are tired. Your wallet is light. You've probably been slightly overcharged by at least one goat-owning teen. And yet, you're oddly content. You survived the ancient market. You did not get trampled by oxen. You didn't drop your chickpeas. You have date paste. Somewhere in your dusty future, supermarkets will be born, bright, tiled, fluorescent-lit boxes of efficiency. But right now, it's just you, your basket, and the long walk home along a path worn smooth by thousands of feet who came here to do the same thing. Gather food, share stories, and quietly invent the future of shopping. You wake early, before the forum stirs, before the bakers shout, before the marble begins to warm under the Roman sun. You're in a tunic, belted neatly, sandals tied tight, because this morning you're walking straight into the belly of ancient retail, the Roman marketplace. Not just any marketplace. This is the forum, the empire's heartbeat. Political debates? Sure. Legal squabbles? Of course. But mostly you're here for bread. The smell hits you before the crowd does. Wood smoke, olive oil, garlic. You pass a woman frying honey-soaked fritters in a pan blackened from 1,000 breakfasts. You make a mental note to circle back. Maybe. The forum isn't a haphazard sprawl. No goats running wild like back in Mesopotamia. This is Rome, and Rome does order. Columns rise around you in clean, repeated rhythm. Stalls line the plaza in neat rectangles. Goods displayed deliberately. Coins clinking from polished counters. You're not wandering. You're hunting. Not just for food, though your stomach grumbles, but for something the Romans perfected. Convenience backed by law. You pass a stall selling fish from the Tiber. Freshish. The vendor offers samples on a little fig leaf. You nod politely and move on. You're here for bread. Remember? Focus. You veer left, dodging a senator's litter, carried by 4 severely unimpressed men in matching sandals, and find yourself in the grain section. Because yes, Rome had sections. This wasn't chaos. It was city planning. Historians still argue whether the Annona system, Rome's state-controlled grain distribution, was an act of generosity or just a clever way to prevent riots. You suspect both. Either way, it changed everything. The state supplied grain to its citizens for free if you were lucky enough to qualify. You don't scan a card. You show a token, your tessera fermentaria, a tiny carved marker that says, "Yes, I belong." You reach the grain stalls just as the fermentarii, those charged with doling out the public grain, begin their work. Sacks of wheat are lined up like obedient soldiers. You're not here for the free stuff today. You missed last week's distribution because of that poetry reading that went long. But you know the drill. You stop at a baker's stall, a semicircular space filled with baskets of panis quadratus. Those hard, scored loaves they used to bake in round molds, stamped with the baker's mark. You pick one up. It smells faintly of ash and fennel. You don't ask for the price. It's etched on a little slab of marble nearby. Rome was many things, but subtle about cost it was not. The baker nods. You hand over a few asses, low-value bronze coins, and slip the loaf into your satchel beside the olive paste you bought earlier from a woman who tried to upsell you 7 types of garlic. You pass rows of garum jars, those legendary, and legendarily pungent, fermented fish sauces. You resist. You've fallen for that trap before. One overturned amphora and your tunic smells like shipwreck for a week. You pause at a stall selling spices brought from impossibly far places. Cinnamon from Ceylon, pepper from India, saffron from Spain. You touch a small linen pouch. It's worth more than your sandals. The vendor raises an eyebrow. You smile. Walk away. You'll come back next payday. Next, the vegetable stalls. Not sprawling piles. Arranged by type. Artichokes, leeks, lentils, and strange-looking roots you can't pronounce but will probably stew later with barley and hope. You notice something familiar. A man comparing 2 onions. He lifts one, then the other, sniffs, hesitates, puts both back. You smirk. The first supermarket indecision aisle just happened. Right there, between parsnips and pride. You take a moment. Stand in the center of the forum, bread in hand, satchel getting heavier. The sounds swell around you. Merchants calling out in Latin, children squealing near a fruit cart, a philosopher mid-rant on a soapstone slab. It's all commerce. But it's more than that. Rome didn't invent markets, but it refined them, made them clean-ish, structured, repeatable. You could walk into another Roman town tomorrow and know exactly where to find the cheese. That predictability, that supermarket DNA. You step into a taberna, a small enclosed shop on the forum's edge. The ceiling is low, but it's cooler inside. Shelves line the walls, yes, actual shelves. Clay pots and dried meats, honeycomb in wicker baskets, herbs tied in fragrant bundles. It's quieter here. You like it. You speak softly to the shopkeeper, who knows your name, your usual order, and your unfortunate tendency to forget coriander. She smiles, hands you a bundle of herbs before you even ask. It's personal. Pre-chain store intimacy. And yet, even here, there's a glimmer of scale. The same bundles, the same prices, the same layout, repeated shop to shop across Rome's vast reach. Back outside, the sun is climbing. Your list is nearly done. You're sticky, satisfied, and only mildly traumatized by the garum fumes. You pass a public scale near the temple steps. A man is loudly accusing a vendor of shorting him. A city official intervenes, recalibrates the weights, and gives the vendor a stare that could wilt parsley. Roman law strikes again. Your satchel's full now. Bread, cheese, olives, a suspiciously cheap wine, and maybe, just maybe, a tiny pouch of cinnamon you couldn't resist. As you head for home, you realize something. You didn't shop today. You performed. Every step was part of a ritual, rooted in efficiency, wrapped in tradition. It wasn't just about what you bought. It was about how you bought it. Publicly, proudly, with flair. And that's the Roman way. The forum fades behind you. Tomorrow it will all happen again. Same stalls, same smells, same man comparing onions. But today you were part of something ancient. Something that still echoes in every automatic door, every barcode checkout, every slow-motion cart pushed through a sea of produce. You cross the threshold of your domus. Bread tucked under your arm, olive paste tucked behind your smile. And somewhere, centuries from now, someone else will walk into a store, grab a loaf, and think, this feels normal. But tonight, you know the truth. It started here. You're awake before the muezzin calls out. The streets are still cool, the stones slick with dew, and the sky above 9th century Baghdad is just beginning to bleach from indigo to gold. You wrap yourself in a loose robe, tug a headscarf into place, and step into the intricate veins of the city's most ambitious invention, the bazaar. This isn't just a market, it's a city within a city, an endless thread of commerce, culture, and cooking smoke. You pass a water seller slinging bronze cups from a yoke over his shoulder, a child juggling pomegranates for tips, and two scholars arguing about medicinal date syrup with impressive hand gestures. You don't need a list. The bazaar is the list. And today, your goal is to navigate the sensory flood and maybe pick up something edible in the process. The succ-a-lateran, the spice quarter, hits you first. Your nostrils flare. Nutmeg, coriander, dried limes, cumin, and cinnamon all battle for dominance. It's like walking into the world's most fragrant punch in the face. In a good way. You duck under a draped linen canopy, and instantly everything changes. Cooler, darker, closer. A man in a teal robe offers you a pinch of something crushed and orange. You take it, taste it. It's dried tamarind, sour and strong. He winks. You keep walking. Historians still argue whether these labyrinthine markets had an internal logic or if they were simply sprawling chaos with really good signage. The truth? It's both. Streets here are zoned by product, by craft, even by smell. You pass through the book market, where copyists are bent over Qurans and poetry, their fingers blackened with ink. You pause. One of them lifts his head and offers you a soft piece. You nod, then glance at the next stall, rosewater, stacked in stoppered glass bottles glowing amber in the morning light. Your sandals slap softly on smooth stone. This part of the bazaar is ancient even by Abbasid standards. The shops are permanent, not mobile stalls. Stone-walled, key-shaped arches, carved wooden doors, some with shutters already open and lamps flickering behind heavy curtains. You pause beside a vendor selling tiny jars of something brown and sticky, mastic gum, used for chewing, baking, and in at least one household warding off gin. You buy two, just in case. Then the ceramic sellers with their brilliant cobalt glazes and intricate arabesques. Bowls and jars line up in disciplined rows, each with a tiny lead weight beside them. No guessing here. You buy by volume, by precision. Yes, the Islamic Golden Age invented algebra, and you suspect it was partly to track lentil sales. You pass a small side alley, no sign, but you know it by smell. Pickles. Lemon and garlic, radish and green mango, fermented and stored in stacked clay amphorae with wax-sealed mouths. A girl in a russet tunic stirs a vat with a wooden pole taller than she is. She looks up, offers you a slice of turnip. You take it. Crunch. Tart. Perfect. You nod. She beams. The bazaar is full now, voices rising like birdsong, footsteps overlapping. You glide through the fabric stalls, bolts of indigo linen, saffron silk, camel hair cloaks, and imagine future supermarkets trying to replicate this. The sound of scissors, the press of fabric against your arm, the risk of walking away and the bolt being sold 10 seconds later. The butchers are out now. You avoid them, but just barely. Too much hanging meat this early in the day. One shouts about lamb kidneys. Another waves a cleaver while laughing. You pretend to be very invested in a display of copper pans. You find yourself near the glass cellars. Bottles, lamps, beads. All mouth blown and twinkling like the city turned liquid and hung itself from wooden racks. You pick one up. Smooth, blue, dimpled like the moon. You don't buy it, but you hold it long enough to feel extravagant. Then the grocers, those unsung heroes of daily routine. Dates, nuts, beans, grains, all arranged in perfect pyramids. You choose some lentils. The seller scoops them into a brass scale, adjusting the tiny weights until the beam balances like a seesaw. He nods. You hand him coins, small, square, copper-dented. No negotiation today. You're tired. Historians still argue whether early Islamic markets like Baghdad's bazaars were the first to implement receipt systems. You don't get a paper slip, but you do get a handwritten note, a tally for your servant to bring back to your house accountant. Somewhere, someone is already filing it. And that's what's so different about this place. It's not just buying, it's tracking. Shopkeepers keep logs. Tally what sells, what doesn't. Patterns emerge. You're in a system, even if it's scrawled in reed ink on palm paper and not yet printed by machine. You pause for lunch, flatbread, goat cheese, cucumber slices wrapped in grape leaves, and sit in the shade of a carved wooden awning, watching the river of trade flow by. It doesn't stop. Not for heat, not for time. The bazaar breathes with the city's rhythm. You sip rose sherbet from a glazed cup, faintly chilled with snow carried from distant mountains and stored in underground ice houses. You stare at your bundle of purchases. Lentils, dates, mastic gum, pickled turnip, and realize something. You didn't just shop. You navigated data, flavor, gossip, and faith, all packed into one long winding walk as you head home. The call to prayer echoes across the rooftops, folding itself between alleyways and arches. The light is softer now, gold dusted over domes and minarets. Tomorrow, the bazaar will reopen. The vendors will reshuffle. The scales will be set, and someone else will step through the arches thinking they're just buying beans. But they're not. They're walking the earliest aisles of the modern world, disguised as ancient ones. You blink into cold morning mist, boots squishing through muddy cobbles, as the church bell clangs overhead like it's in a competition with every rooster in town. Welcome to medieval Europe's market day, a weekly festival of smells, shouting, livestock, gossip, and possibly expired cheese. You're not alone. Everyone's out today. The entire town, plus every surrounding farmer within donkey distance, has gathered to barter, sell, judge each other's cabbages, and quietly compare boots. The square in front of the church has transformed. Yesterday it was mostly puddles. Today, it's alive. Dozens of carts jostle for position, their drivers calling out prices while ducks quack ominously from inside crates. A dog trots past with a stolen sausage. No one stops it. It earned that. You step past a woman unloading wool by the bale, each hunk smelling faintly of damp sheep and ambition. She's setting up near the spice man, which is either good strategy or a terrible idea. You head toward the vegetable row, a long line of barrels, baskets, and sagging wooden tables. Root vegetables dominate the scene. Onions, parsnips, turnips, and something knobbly that might be a beet or might be a rock. There are no prices. There's negotiation, bartering, grumbling. One man's radishes for another's ale. One woman trades a wedge of sharp cheese for 3 candles and a rumor about someone's niece. You join in, offering your eggs for some dried peas. The vendor examines them like they're suspect coins, then nods. Trade complete. No receipt, just eye contact and mutual understanding. Historians still argue whether medieval market towns were governed by free commerce or overlord control. In truth, both forces tugged at every stall. Some towns had charters, official royal permissions to hold markets on specific days. These documents were displayed like trophies, often read aloud in the square before sales began, just in case someone forgot who was really profiting. You spot the town crier, red-faced and squinting, reading such a charter now, standing atop an overturned ale barrel. No one listens, but he shouts anyway. It's tradition. You move on to the butter ladies, each seated on a small stool, round pat after round pat of thick, yellow butter laid out on cabbage leaves. You smell wood smoke and salt, butter churned at dawn and rushed to market before it softened. You buy 2 lumps, slip them into a waxed pouch, and smile. A chicken flaps past. Not crated, just a free chicken, living its truth. Next, the fish sellers. You pause, think about it, regret it, move on. The mead vendor catches your eye. He gestures toward a set of earthenware jugs labeled with crude runes. You sample a honey-sweet version that fizzes slightly and makes your nose tingle. You buy a flask. You might need it later when the blacksmith starts yelling about stolen tools again. There's a certain rhythm to this chaos. You begin to recognize it. Not just noise, but a beat, pattern. Sellers cluster by product. Spices to the east, linen near the steps, livestock at the edge. Mostly so they don't trample the pastry cart again. And pastries, yes, finally. You find the pastry widow, a sharp-tongued elder who bakes apple tarts that could end a war. She's already sold out of honey cakes. You grab the last mead loaf, pay her with a handful of salt, and feel triumphant. There are no carts here, no shelves. But in its own muddy, goose-laden way, the medieval market is doing something revolutionary, organizing trade around people and place. You return each week to the same butter lady, the same wool stall, the same man who sells apples with too much eye contact. And in that repetition, you start to see it, customer loyalty. There's even a rough kind of credit system. Some vendors mark tallies on scraps of wood. You hear one woman say, "I'll settle next Sunday," and the cheese man just nods. No interest, no late fees, just reputation. Break that, and your butter days are over. As the day continues, the crowd thickens. Musicians wander in. Children tug at their mother's skirts. Someone's goat gets loose and is pursued by 3 very determined toddlers. You find yourself near the cloth sellers, bolts of wool and linen stacked like rainbow haystacks. The merchant explains that this bolt is dyed with woad, that one with madder, and this one, mysteriously, with crushed berries and a prayer. You buy a swatch, imagining a new cloak that says, "I attend markets but also understand dramatic entrances." You glance toward the church. A monk is bartering with a fishmonger using what appears to be a very old candle as currency. It works. The fish is wrapped in a leaf and handed over. By mid-afternoon, the square is louder than ever. You pass a woman hawking herbal remedies for everything from warts to unwanted dreams. You take a tiny vial labeled sleep water and file it under maybe useful, possibly poison. You duck into the ale tent for shade. Inside, a handful of travelers sit on rough benches, sipping from shared cups. You join them. The talk turns to grain shortages, weather patterns, and someone's daughter eloping with a cooper. You sip. The mead is sweet, slightly warm. The butter is soft now, your peas slightly squashed. But you've got cloth, a tart, and enough salt to bribe your way through most mild inconveniences. Historians still argue whether medieval markets laid the groundwork for capitalism or simply continued the barter systems of old. But what's clear is that exchange here wasn't just economic. It was cultural. You didn't just buy food. You talked, traded, gathered information, and participated in a ritual that bound the community together. As the bell tolls again and vendors begin packing up, you start the walk home, careful not to spill your tart or drop your swatch into a puddle and no receipts. No points. But your loyalty is real. You know who sells the softest wool, who always shouts too much, who'll throw in an extra onion if you ask about their dog. And centuries from now, when stores become supermarkets and checkout lines replace barter tables, people will look back and say, this is where it started, not just buying, but shopping. You push open a creaky wooden door and step inside the general store. A low-ceilinged room smelling faintly of molasses, kerosene, and damp wool. It's cold outside, mud frozen in the ruts, a gray sky pressing down. But in here, there's warmth. Not from central heating, you wish, but from the thick body heat of barrels, jars, and the slow-burning iron stove in the corner. It's not fancy. No polished floors, no bright lights, no background music. But this is where the magic begins. Because unlike the chaotic markets you've waded through in Mesopotamia, Rome, and medieval Europe, here you're walking into a store with walls. A place where everything you need lives under one roof. Well, everything you might need and a few things you're not entirely sure how to use. The general store is part supply depot, part social salon, part accidental history museum. You're greeted. Not by a bell, not by an automated voice, but by the storekeeper, a bearded man in a faded indigo apron who looks like he hasn't blinked since the last harvest. He nods, doesn't speak. You nod back. This is the ritual. You step further in. Wooden shelves sag under the weight of salt pork, flour sacks, bolts of calico, and dusty tins labeled things like tooth powder and salve, general purpose. Over in the corner is the barrel of molasses, complete with spigot and metal dipper. It oozes slowly, like it's thinking about whether or not you deserve it today. The storekeeper finally speaks. Needin' nails, beans, or soap? It's not a question. It's a challenge. You grin. All three. He nods, disappears behind a burlap curtain, and re-emerges moments later with a small wooden crate. Inside, a twist of iron nails, a scoop of navy beans tied in muslin, and a bar of soap so brown it looks like it might bite you first. This isn't shopping the way we know it. There are no carts, no aisles, and definitely no labels. You ask, he fetches. You don't browse, you declare. Historians still argue whether general stores were true precursors to supermarkets or simply a rustic cousin. What's agreed upon is that these stores marked the beginning of centralized retail. You no longer needed to wander from the butcher to the candle maker to the clothier. Now, you walked into one space, made one list, and probably forgot half of it. The general store's beauty is in its chaotic uniformity. Every small town had one, often near the church or post office. Inside, the same things in the same places, sold by the same gruff voice behind the same wooden counter. You run your hand along a glass jar full of horehound candies, the kind your great-aunt used to keep in her apron. You resist the temptation to sneak one, knowing full well the storekeeper is watching with hawk-like intensity. You ask for kerosene, and he motions toward a tin jug that looks flammable just by association. You carry it carefully, aware that your candlelit future depends on not dropping it. You ask for coffee, and he measures out a scoop of coarse grounds from a barrel lined with waxed cloth. There's no brand, no origin, no notes of citrus or chocolate. Just coffee. Strong, bitter, necessary. And behind him, on a shelf slightly too high to be polite, sit sewing needles, shotgun shells, peppermint oil, and ink pots. It's a logic only he understands. You don't ask questions. He's memorized where everything lives. He is the system. You glance down and realize you've stepped in a puddle of molasses. Not fresh, maybe from last week. No one cares. It's part of the charm. The walls are plastered with pencil-written IOUs, each scrawled in different handwriting, some dating back months. There's no interest charged, just faith. Credit was personal, not algorithmic. You make your way toward the counter, carrying your small bundle of necessities. The storekeeper tallies them on a scrap of brown paper using a stub of graphite worn down like a wishbone. "No onions today," he says gruffly. You hadn't asked, but now you're disappointed. Someone behind you coughs. You glance back. It's Mrs. Penwell, who once accused you of stealing turnips last harvest. She smiles faintly now, offers you a boiled sweet. You accept. Markets divide. Stores oddly unite. You pay in silver coins, rough around the edges, and he drops them into a wooden drawer with a sound that feels final. And then, this part's important, he wraps your goods in paper and twine. No bag, no box, just a skillful twist and knot that somehow holds everything together with the structural integrity of an ancient bridge. As you leave, the bell doesn't ring. There is no bell, just the thud of the door and the soft jangle of your twine-wrapped bundle tapping your side. You step out into cold daylight, wind sharp against your cheeks, and realize you've spent an hour inside without realizing it. That's the spell of the general store. It wasn't about efficiency. It was about connection. You didn't just buy things, you got advice, heard gossip, debated seed prices, and accidentally bought 3 times as much lard as you needed. And this store, like thousands of others across the countryside, quietly shaped the future of shopping. It taught people to expect variety, to trust regular supply, to return each week and feel like the world, despite its chaos, could still fit inside 4 wooden walls and a handwritten ledger. So next time you walk into a sleek supermarket with a glowing sign and digital checkout, remember the storekeeper with the apron, the barrel of molasses, and the nail scoop. They walked so supermarkets could barcode. The ceiling stretches overhead in glittering glass arcs, catching the pale Paris light like a gilded spiderweb. You step beneath it with purpose and just the tiniest bit of awe. This isn't a market. This is an arcade, and you are now shopping in style. The year is somewhere in the early 19th century, and you're in Paris, strolling through the famed Galerie Vivienne or perhaps the Passage de Panoramas, depending on how your morning went and how ambitious your boots feel. Either way, you've entered a realm where buying things is no longer just necessary. It's become something far more thrilling. Leisure. The arcades are roofed passages, lined with shops on either side, illuminated by skylights and warmed by body heat and the slow-burning thrill of having money to spend. Gone are the muddy stalls, the braying goats, the fish smell. Here, everything is curated, arranged with intentional charm behind paned windows. You press your gloved hand against a glass display filled with velvet gloves, satin slippers, and perfume bottles shaped like swans. You don't need any of it. You want all of it. This is new. This is flânery, the art of strolling. You're not just shopping. You're seeing and being seen. A man in a top hat walks past, pausing to admire a tray of pocket watches. A woman in indigo stops to sniff a sachet of violet powder. Children with curls and ridiculous hats press their faces against the window of a toy shop, staring at miniature cannons and puppets with a mix of horror and glee. You make your way down the marble-tiled corridor, past a bookstore with hand-inked signs, past a milliner's shop where the latest bonnet styles are perched on headless busts like birds ready to flee. Historians still argue whether arcades count as the first modern retail spaces, but one thing is certain. This is where shopping becomes an event. It's indoors, yes, but more than that, it's designed, lit, ornamented, polished. It whispers, "Stay a while. You're safe from the mud here." You stop at a stationery shop, run your fingers over the thick, creamy parchment, and briefly consider writing a letter to your future self. They've invented glass roofs. You're welcome. The shopkeeper bows. You nod in return. You buy an envelope sealed with pressed ferns. Even though you don't have anything to say. It's not about the letter. It's about the gesture around the corner. A cafe spills out into the passage, its tiny marble tables cluttered with espresso cups, gilt spoons, and philosophers. You sit. Order hot chocolate so thick it might file taxes. You sip. Watch the flow of boots and parasols and mustaches. The arcade functions like a theater, and you're both audience and cast. There are no stage directions, but everyone seems to know their cues. The pause at the perfume shop, the half-turn by the fabric merchant, the dramatic window sigh, and the shops, they don't just sell. They narrate. Displays are arranged with themes, colors, layers. A display of lace handkerchiefs is arranged in a spiral. A row of hats tells a story from country modesty to Parisian drama. You follow it without meaning to. You step into a shop selling paint pigments, crushed minerals in tiny corked vials, labeled in looping French script. Cobalt, vermilion, ochre. You buy one of each, even though you haven't painted since you tried to recreate a duck last spring and ended up with something that looked like a tragic pear. But again, it's about the possibility. What if, as you leave, the arcade sounds envelop you again? Leather shoes on tile, quiet laughter, the distant ring of a cash drawer. It's a hum, not a clamor. Sophisticated noise.it begins to rain outside, but you're untouched. The glass ceiling above holds the storm at bay, refracting gray light across the mosaic floor. Someone opens an umbrella anyway, indoors, and you realize they're not afraid of superstition. They're performing. You reach the end of the passage and hesitate. Outside is the old world. Mud, carriages, horse sweat, sudden gusts. In here is something new. The arcade, in its gilded elegance, has started a shift. From necessity to desire, from errand to experience, you head back in. Maybe for another look at those perfumes. Just to smell. Maybe to buy. You'll decide when you see how the bottle feels in your hand. Historians often debate whether arcades were the first glimmer of the department store. They weren't as vast or unified, but they did something important. They made shopping beautiful. They added architecture to impulse, light to decision, drama to consumption. You pass a stall selling crystallized violets and you buy a small tin because suddenly the idea of eating flowers seems like the most natural thing in the world. When you leave the arcade at last, arms a little heavier, purse a little lighter, you step out not just as a customer but as a participant in something new. Something that will grow ceilings taller, windows wider, displays grander. You're not a shopper anymore, that you're a flaneur. And centuries from now, someone else will push their cart down an air-conditioned aisle and feel a ghost of this same thrill. The theater of goods, the velvet of possibility. But they'll never have your view of the rain, gliding down glass above your head like applause. You step into a palace, though it's not called that. It's called a department store. But with all this velvet and brass and mirrored wall sconces, who are they trying to fool? You've wandered into the grand theater of capitalism, and tonight's show is ladies' gloves and umbrellas. It's late 19th century Paris, or London, or New York. The scent of coal smoke drifting through city streets. But inside the store, the air smells like violet powder and waxed wood. The noise of the world dims to a murmur. You blink in the gaslight. Are those mannequins? Are they judging you? You're in a world where everything is for sale, and everything has its place. The floor gleams. The ceiling climbs. The entry hall alone could host a minor ball. And the displays, oh, the displays. They don't just show. They seduce. Rows of silk fans, neatly folded, like birds asleep on shelves. Jewelry glinting from velvet nests. Parasols open just so, to catch the light and your attention. You glance down. Your boots are dusty. Somehow you feel underdressed to buy a hat. But you press on, into the heart of this multi-level wonderland, where departments rise like kingdoms, each ruled by a different form of temptation. Perfume, stationery, haberdashery, millinery, drapery, corsetry. The words alone feel indulgent. You say them slowly in your head, like tasting syllables made of sugar. You approach a glass case filled with gloves, dozens of pairs, arranged by color like a spectrum of social class. A clerk in a crisp teal dress appears, silent and smiling. She asks your size. You don't know. She does. She brings you cream-colored gloves that smell faintly of citrus and expensive decisions. You nod. You buy. She wraps them in paper, ties it with a ribbon so perfect you consider never opening it, just tucking it into your drawer like a secret you purchased. Historians still argue whether department stores empowered women or just invented new ways to distract them. But there's no question that these temples of taste gave women freedom of motion inside a structure designed to welcome them. You're walking unescorted. You're touching goods before purchase. You're making decisions without asking permission. This isn't just shopping. It's a quiet revolution wrapped in lace trim. You ascend the grand staircase, fingers trailing along the polished banister, and find yourself in the drapery department. Heavy folds of velvet, muslin, and brocade cascade from brass rods. You press your face into one. It smells like dust and wealth. Then on to books and writing paper, where the air is cooler, quieter. A man coughs gently while selecting a journal. You pick up a fountain pen, weighty, gold-nibbed. You have nothing urgent to write, but the idea of writing it well feels irresistible. The store goes on. There's a restaurant upstairs with white linen, little silver spoons, and tea poured from 3 feet above the cup like a magic trick. You sit, order something fizzy, watch other shoppers drift by, some like queens, others like explorers, all caught in the tide of shiny distraction. One woman cries softly over a bolt of silk. No one asks why. The clerk offers her a sample. She takes it and leaves. A boy is being measured for a sailor suit. A man stands frozen in front of a display of canes, each more unnecessary than the last. And yet they all buy something, even if it's small, even if it's silly, because to walk through here and leave empty-handed feels like forgetting to breathe. You return to the main floor, arms full of parcels, ideas, contradictions. The clerk smiles again as you exit, a bell chiming softly overhead. You step back into the street, blinking at the gray sky. The world feels flatter out here. The sidewalks dirtier, the people louder. But something's changed. You've been inside the machine. Not a cold one. Not yet. A gold-trimmed, perfumed, mahogany-lined machine that whispered, "You deserve this," and then handed you an umbrella just in case it rained. And later, long after the department store becomes just one kind of store, after it births entire chains and sub-chains and discount cousins, after it's digitized and algorithmized, someone will pause in front of a seasonal end cap and feel it. The echo, the gentle tap of a gloved clerk's fingers, the perfume in the stairwell, the hush between departments, the price of pretending. You walk home slowly, ribbon-wrapped parcels in hand. You didn't need any of it, but you wanted it. And that, dear listener, was the point. The floor tiles are smooth and cool under your shoes. The lights overhead hum softly. The air smells faintly of floor wax and oranges. You've just walked into a place that doesn't feel like history. Feels familiar, which is strange because it's 1916 and you're in Memphis, Tennessee. But the store you've entered is anything but ordinary. This is Piggly Wiggly, and for the first time in human history, you're doing something wild. You're shopping by yourself. No clerk hovering behind a counter. No scribbled list handed to a man in an apron. Just you, your basket, and aisles upon aisles of goods you're allowed to touch. It feels rebellious, intimate, dangerous, even. You pause at the entrance. There's a gate, yes, a literal turnstile, and you push through it. Click. You're in. And the moment it swings behind you, you realize something. They're watching. Well, not they, exactly. But the store is designed to guide you, to usher you along a path from fresh produce to dry goods to cold meats to, finally, the checkout. It's not quite a maze. It's a journey. You pick up a metal basket, new invention, slightly unwieldy, surprisingly symbolic. A clerk gives you a polite nod but doesn't move to help. That's your job now. You're the shopper. You walk into the first aisle. Cans of beans stacked neatly, labels all facing forward like soldiers. Soap bars wrapped in tidy paper. Flour in sacks, sugar in boxes, everything clearly priced, clearly placed, all yours to examine. Historians agree on this moment. Clarence Saunders, the founder of Piggly Wiggly, changed retail forever. He invented the self-service grocery store, an idea so radical at the time, people weren't sure they liked it. "Why should I have to fetch my own items?" they grumbled. But deep down, they liked it. The freedom, the control, the possibility of lingering over the biscuit tins without someone sighing behind a counter. You glide to the next aisle. You pick up a tin of peaches. You read the label. No one stops you. You compare it to the one next to it. You feel empowered. You also feel a bit like you're getting away with something. And then, oh joy, the cereal. Rows of it. Boxes with bright colors and smiling characters. Well, not yet, but you can feel them coming. You pick one up. You don't even need cereal. You're just curious. This is new, and it's working. Each aisle leads you logically to the next. This is not chaos. This is retail choreography. Saunders understood something no one else did. If you lay out the store like a narrative, people will follow it, and by more along the way you reach the dairy case. Real ice, real cold, a marvel in the Memphis heat. Bottles of milk glisten. You take one. Fits nicely into your basket. You're getting the hang of this. A woman walks past, glances at your basket, then grabs a tin you hadn't noticed. You feel something. Is this early-stage shopping psychology? Is this the beginning of retail peer pressure? Yes. Yes, it is. You double back. Take the same tin. You don't even know what it is. It just seemed popular. Historians still argue whether Piggly Wiggly's genius was its layout, its branding, or the novelty of letting customers do the labor. But its success is undeniable. Within 5 years, there were hundreds of locations. By decade's end, thousands. And what did they all have? Aisles of baskets, shelves, checkout counters. You arrive at the last of those now. It's a wooden station, manned by a young clerk in a flat cap. He smiles. You unload your basket. He totals it with surprising speed. You pay. He bags your items in a paper sack. You walk out, no receipt, just a grin and a nod. You step back into the street and blink in the sun. Your arms are full. Your basket is empty. Your mind? Racing. You just did your own shopping, you made your own choices, took your own time. There was no waiting for the clerk to find the cinnamon. You found it. You judged it. You bought it. This wasn't just shopping. This was participation. And it's not just about you. Because Clarence Saunders, mad genius, grocery philosopher, just cracked open something big. The idea that customers could serve themselves wasn't just practical. It was revolutionary. It led to standardized layouts, uniform product packaging, pricing labels, shelf psychology, and all that came from one wild, tiled store with pig imagery and a turnstile. Later, department stores will adapt. Drugstores will imitate. Malls will rise. But it all begins here, with you, alone in the aisle, holding a tin of peaches like it's the future. Because it is. The shelves are straight. The lighting is bright. The floors are spotless linoleum. And there's a faint but ever-present smell of cardboard and wax paper. You're standing in the heart of a mid-century chain store. Let's say A&P, or maybe Safeway, or a freshly minted Kroger. And suddenly, you are not alone in your experience. Because now, every store looks the same. You could be in Des Moines. You could be in Denver. Doesn't matter. The canned peaches are still on aisle 3. The flour is still next to the sugar. The cashiers still wear aprons, and you still have to double back to get the baking soda you forgot. Welcome to the era of retail cloning. This is the chain store revolution, and what began with one self-serve grocery store has now metastasized into a nationwide experience. One that prioritizes uniformity, predictability, and scale. You grab a cart. Not a basket. A full-sized, rattling metal cart. Invented in the 1930s, but now ubiquitous. Its wheels squeak just enough to annoy but not enough to return. You begin your route like everyone does. Produce, then pantry, then perishables, then checkout. It's a dance now. One choreographed by executives in distant offices who've never stepped foot in the specific store, but know exactly how your feet will move through it. You roll into the canned goods section. Labels face forward. Brands compete not by shouting, but by color psychology and logo familiarity. You could shop blindfolded. You're starting to. You grab a can of Campbell's soup. Not because you need it, but because you always do. That's the genius of branding. It replaces memory with habit. Historians still argue whether chain stores homogenized the American landscape or democratized access to goods. But one thing's clear. They created a new ritual, one where millions of people could perform the same routine in unison, across the map. You pause at the end cap display. A tiny temple built for marketing. Pyramid stacks of boxed cereal positioned precisely at child eye level. You smirk. You've read the studies. Doesn't stop you from grabbing a box. You turn the corner. Now the dairy aisle, chilled and humming. Cartons lined like soldiers. Expiration dates peeking up like nervous scouts. You pick the one in the back. You always do. Feels clever. And then, your favorite part, the freezers, glass doors, frosted just so. Inside, rows of possibilities. Fish sticks, TV dinners, pies that promise just like grandma's with zero credibility. You grab a lasagna. You do not need lasagna. You want convenience. You move on. Each aisle feels like a decision tree wrapped in fluorescent light. The store itself becomes a logic puzzle. Go here first, then there, then loop back if the bread is on sale. You notice something else. Branding has become religion. You don't say pasta. You say Barilla. You don't say cleaner. You say Clorox. Loyalty now means recognition, not relationship. This is the age of mass retail. Chain stores aren't about charm. They're about trust, the deep subconscious belief that what you find here today will be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and in the next town, and the next state, and even next year. You're part of something huge. Something replicable. Something that feels like safety. And yet, there's something eerie about it too. You notice that even the greeting cards sound the same. Even the produce bins smell the same. Even the fluorescent lights flicker in the same rhythm. Like the store itself is breathing across time zones. You walk past a display of white bread, stacked high and perfect, each loaf identical. You remember a bakery from your childhood. Flour on the floor. The smell of yeast. A woman who tied your bread in twine. You miss her, but you buy the white bread anyway. Because it's here. And it always will be. You reach the checkout. Conveyor belt now. A beep for every item. No smiles, just scanning. A teenager in a red apron mumbles your total. You pay. The machine chirps. You walk out with 2 bags and the strange sensation that you've been part of a rehearsal, not a performance. And yet, it worked. You have what you need. You didn't have to think too hard. That's the point. Chain stores, A&P, Safeway, Kroger, taught us to expect. Consistency is speed or reliability, and though they erased much of the local flavor, they also lifted millions into access. Rural families found brands they'd only read about. City dwellers got pineapple in January. The world got smaller. The shelves got wider. Historians note this era as the point when shopping became scalable, where marketing wasn't about charming you, it was about repeating you across the country, customer by customer, cart by cart. You're not browsing anymore. You're executing a pattern. Predictable, reliable, comforting. You head to your car. The sun is setting. The parking lot is full. And every person rolling their cart beside you has just performed the same dance in perfect retail harmony. The system works. The store wins. You eat well tonight. You walk into the store and instantly feel it. This place is designed not just to serve you. It's designed to manipulate you. Gently, lovingly, invisibly. This is the age of supermarket science. And you, dear shopper, are the subject. Bright lights shine down on mounds of apples. Crisp, glistening, arranged in absurd pyramids you'd never build at home. Why? Because abundance sells. The apple is not just an apple. It's a symbol of freshness, health, desire. Even if you came in for toothpaste, the apple greets you first, whispering maybe you're a fruit person now. This is the psychology of layout. Every aisle, every shelf, every product placement has been engineered, tested, measured, optimized for one purpose: to make you spend just a little more than you meant to. You wheel your cart forward, through the produce section placed at the entrance on purpose. The colors relax you. The illusion of health makes your future ice cream purchase feel less criminal. You turn right because most people do. That's not a guess. It's data. We gravitate toward our dominant hand, and the store planners know this. So guess where the high-margin items are? Right. Exactly right. Historians don't even argue about this part anymore. It's well documented. By the mid-20th century, supermarkets had evolved into retail laboratories, and you were the most cheerful lab rat of all. You passed through the cereal aisle, lined like a museum of mascots. Sugar bombs disguised as breakfast. Each box positioned by age demographics, bright colors and cartoon eyes at kid level, oat clusters and vaguely adult optimism up top. You reach for the brand you always buy. But pause. There's a new one next to it. Slightly cheaper. Brighter box. You hesitate. That's planned. Choice paralysis is part of the equation. Too much choice and you'll default to the familiar. Or grab both. You grab both. You roll on. The music playing overhead is not just background. It's tempo-tested. Slower music makes you linger. Lingering increases purchases by 30%. The soft jazz you're hearing right now is not an accident. It's a sales strategy with a saxophone. You stop in front of a freezer. Rows of dinners with smiling families on the box. You notice one has a limited time only banner. Urgency. Exclusivity. You put it in the cart. You don't even read the ingredients. But there's probably cheese. That feels safe. You glance at the signage. New low price. 2 for $5. The exclamation marks do heavy lifting. But the real trick. You weren't going to buy 2. But now it feels rude not to. Next aisle. Paper goods. Toilet paper brands stage a quiet war with phrases like ultra plush, cloud soft, and now with extra layering. You have no idea what any of that means, but you reach for the most serene packaging, pale blue with a sleeping bear. Sold. Historians cite this period, the post-war boom through the 1980s, as the golden age of shelf psychology. Retailers brought in consultants, market researchers, even anthropologists to study how shoppers moved, where they paused, what they touched. It's no longer about what's in stock. It's about what's within reach. You notice that brand name items are placed at eye level while generic brands are lower. Premium products shine in well-lit spots. Store brand? Slightly shadowed. Subconscious cues. You round a corner and find a sampling table. Tiny cubes of cheddar on toothpicks. The woman behind the table offers you one, smiling like she's just made it herself. You take it. She points to a display of the same cheese stacked nearby. You were never going to buy cheese. Now you feel obligated. You add it to the cart. Why? Because reciprocity bias. You took a free thing. Now you feel like you owe them. Welcome to emotional economics. The bread aisle. Smells amazing. But wait, that's weird. The bread is bagged. So why does it smell like baking? You look up. The store pumps synthetic bread sent through the vents. Yes, that's real. And you are so into it. You grab a baguette and pretend you were always planning to have soup tonight. You will toward the end cap displays, those highly visible spots at the end of aisles designed to trap you with seasonal temptations. Halloween candy in August. Christmas cookies in October. Valentine's chocolate on New Year's Day. You resist. But not really. One bag of marshmallow pumpkins can't hurt. You're almost done. Almost. You reach the checkout aisle. The gauntlet. This is where impulse lives. Gum. Mints. Chapstick. Batteries. Tabloids with stories of ghost weddings and celebrity sandwiches. A row of energy drinks promising clarity and 6-hour confidence. You grab a pack of gum. You haven't chewed gum in months. Doesn't matter. The cashier greets you. Scans. Beeps. Bags. You stare at the total and blink. How did it get this high? You can't remember what half of this is. You're not even mad. You just marvel at the efficiency of the system. You leave the store with full bags, a lighter wallet, and a strange mix of satisfaction and confusion. What just happened? Shopping happened, but not by accident. Every item, every sign, every scent and sound was part of a system built not just to stock goods, but to shape behavior. You walk to your car and unpack the bags. Bread, cereal, cheese, gum, frozen lasagna, bonus apples, definitely more toilet paper than one human needs. And somewhere inside all that, you, following the path you didn't know was drawn for you. The siren wails in the distance. The streetlights are dimmed, windows shuttered. You clutch a ration book, frayed at the edges, and step into a grocery store that feels nothing like it used to. It's 1943. The world is at war. And supermarkets, so bright, so full just a few years ago, now echo with scarcity. You join the queue outside. Not a line for the latest product launch. A line for powdered milk. For canned beef. For whatever they have. Inside, shelves are half full. Some are empty. There's no colorful end cap display. No scented bakery fogging the air with cinnamon dreams. Instead, chalkboard signs listing weekly limits. Posters with slogans like, "Use it up," Wear it out, make it do or do without. You wait your turn. The store clerk behind the counter doesn't scan barcodes. He checks coupons. You hand him stamps, tiny, perforated, government-issued. He punches your book, tears a stub, and slides a tin of corned beef your way. This is not the supermarket of abundance. This is discipline with fluorescent lighting. Historians still argue whether wartime rationing democratized food access or simply formalized inequality. But here, in the dim aisles of wartime shopping, you feel it clearly. The supermarket is no longer just a place to spend. It's a place to survive. And yet, it functions. It endures. People shop with patience, trade recipes for turnip stew, quietly mourn butter. You step into the dry goods aisle, where flour and rice are measured out by hand from bins behind the counter. You ask for 3 pounds. The clerk hesitates, consults a sheet. 2.5, he says. You nod. You're lucky. You wheel your small cart forward, eyeing the precious tins of evaporated milk and instant coffee, each sitting like relics on the shelf. Your neighbor grabs the last jar of jam. She offers you half. You decline. She insists. It's a quiet kind of heroism. But here's the twist. Amidst all this frugality, something is building. The systems, the structures, the logistics required to feed millions under stress are evolving. Supermarkets, though limited, are proving themselves to be resilient machines. You move to the register. No piped music. Just the soft clink of coins and the rustle of ration paper. The cashier doesn't smile. She's tired. So are you. But you leave with food. Enough. Not plenty. But enough. Fast forward a few years. The war ends. The world exhales. And suddenly everything changes. It's 1950 now. You step into the same store, but something's different. The shelves are full. Brimming, even. You pause, overwhelmed. So many brands. So many options. So much color. The chalkboards are gone. The limits are lifted. There's coffee again. Real butter. Ham. Pineapple and syrup. Historians mark this moment as the birth of post-war consumerism. Supermarkets become cathedrals of possibility. Shoppers who once begged for powdered eggs now choose between 4 brands of mayonnaise. Feels absurd. And glorious. You take a cart, now larger, smoother, shinier, and wheel it down a wide, gleaming aisle. Music plays overhead. You don't recognize the song, but it's cheerful, clean, optimistic. You pass the cereal section. Boxes grin at you. Cartoon mascots have entered the game. You smile back. You know it's marketing. You fall for it anyway. The produce is fresher, brighter. There's lettuce from California, bananas from Ecuador, oranges from Florida. You feel like the world has arrived in your neighborhood. And you are the new royalty. The store doesn't just serve you, it flatters you. Signs declare you deserve the best. Loyalty programs bloom. Smiling clerks offer to carry your bags. You never have to touch a scale. You arrive at the freezer aisle, once a rarity, now a monument. Rows of frozen dinners promise gourmet meals with no effort. You grab 2. The packaging shows a family smiling at meatloaf like it just solved climate change. Supermarkets begin offering more than groceries. There's a pharmacy section, a magazine rack, garden seeds, pet food, plastic flamingos. You can furnish your house and plan a picnic in one trip. Historians note that by the 1950s, supermarket square footage explodes. Stores get bigger, wider aisles, more carts. Parking lots bloom like concrete meadows. And in the center of it all, you, the shopper, moving with confidence, comfort, and a growing sense of routine. You reach the register. It's faster now. Trained clerks scan items with lightning speed, flipping price tags, punching totals into chunky chrome machines. The bags are paper, printed with the store logo. They feel official. You walk out under the sun, arms full, heart light. Wartime rationing taught you to be careful. But post-war supermarkets give you permission to indulge. You drive home, humming the store's jingle, thinking about frozen pie, and marveling at how quickly scarcity became surplus. And just like that, shopping becomes pleasure again. But underneath it all, The machine that endured the war has now accelerated. Faster deliveries, bigger inventories, more choices, and behind every smiling clerk, a growing web of logistics, data, and psychology, humming along like a well-oiled cart. Tonight, dinner is easy, dessert is real, and tomorrow you'll come back. Because now you can. You step through the sliding doors and suddenly you're not just in a store, you're in a global network. The signs are in Portuguese. The mangoes are local, but the layout, the cart, the logic of movement through this space. Unmistakably familiar. Welcome to the global supermarket era. Whether you're shopping in Sao Paulo, Johannesburg, Tokyo, Bangkok, or Warsaw, the architecture of the aisle remains consistent. The produce comes first. The dairy's always in the back. The candy lurks near the checkout like a sugary trap. You know this dance. You've done it before. And so have millions of others that in the wake of the post-war boom. As economies reopened and nations developed, supermarkets became more than just stores. They became symbols of modernity, of success, of progress. You didn't just shop at a supermarket. You arrived in the future. Here in this Tokyo store, the plastic-wrapped fish glistens under LED lights. Over there, a stack of instant noodles taller than your nephew. A small shrine of French wine. And yes, a fresh wasabi root for the brave. The signage is elegant. The lighting perfect. Even the music feels curated. Slow, calming, just enough to keep you strolling a little longer. You drift past a display of Swedish biscuits, then Turkish figs. In one basket, Colombian coffee. In another, Korean seaweed snacks. The globe is not just spinning. It's been diced, packaged, and alphabetized. Historians don't debate this anymore. Supermarkets became global templates. As chains expanded across borders and local businesses adopted the supermarket model. This wasn't cultural imperialism so much as commerce pragmatism. The model worked, and it could be adapted. You're in South Africa now. The aisles stretch wide. The signage is bright. You pause in front of a bin of maize meal, an entire end cap devoted to it. Nearby, imported peanut butter jostles for space with 5 brands of rooibos tea. Every country has its own flavors, its own rituals, its own unspoken rules about how to shop. And yet, beneath it all, there's a shared understanding. There's always a dairy aisle. There's always frozen peas. There's always something you didn't mean to buy sitting snugly in your cart. You're in India, brushing past sacks of rice and ghee tins, when you spot it. A familiar bottle of Coca-Cola. You didn't plan to buy it. You grab it anyway, because that's what global brands do. They give you continuity across time zones. The store smells different here. Spices, mostly. Cardamom, fenugreek, curry leaf. But the system is the same. Barcodes, baskets, specials, end caps. Historians point to this era as the solidification of the one-store model. It's not just what you sell, it's how you sell it. How you guide a shopper through a physical experience that ends in a sense of satisfaction and control. And maybe, just maybe, identity. You're in Mexico City now. The tortillas are still warm. You reach into a basket, feel the softness. You smile. It's the first time today the store has touched your memory. Because here's the truth. No matter where you are in the world, supermarkets now offer more than groceries. They offer familiarity, autonomy, a curated form of belonging. The brands change. The snacks vary, but the core experience remains. You enter, you gather, you exit with a receipt and a story. And for migrant families, for travelers, for city dwellers in a rush or villagers on market day, that sameness is a kind of relief. A language without grammar, spoken in tile and shelf. You're in Vietnam now. Near a cooler of fresh greens misted every 10 seconds. When you hear someone laugh, they're holding a frozen pizza. Their cart is otherwise filled with fresh tofu, fish sauce, dragon fruit. And yet, pizza. That contradiction? That's global shopping now. No borders, just blending. You reach the register. A familiar beep. A card reader. A choice between points and coupons. The cashier says thank you in a language you don't speak, but you understand her just fine. You walk out into unfamiliar heat, the bag handles digging into your palm, and marvel at the fact that you've shopped in 6 countries in one mind walk and never once lost your bearings. That's what supermarkets have become. Anchors in a shifting world in ever faster in languages and currencies you don't know, but shopping layouts you somehow do. And somewhere, tucked in your basket between sesame, oil and cheese puffs, you carried home something else entirely. Globalization in grocery form. The beep is soft, mechanical, almost hypnotic. You slide the carton across the red light. It beeps again. This time, the barcode's a little smudged. You wipe it with your sleeve. Try again. Success. You place it in the bag with a satisfying thud. It's the 1970s. And you are scanning your groceries at one of the world's first automated checkouts. Welcome to the age of barcodes and backends, where the true revolution isn't happening in the produce aisle, but behind the scenes in databases, scanners, and the invisible net of automation that binds the modern supermarket together. You may not realize it, but you're standing in a technical marvel. Because this quiet beep is history. A universal product code, UPC. Black stripes on a white field, carrying all the knowledge a store needs about what you're buying, how much you're paying, and which shelf it came from. It's not magic. It's a system, and it will change everything. Historians agree. The introduction of barcodes in 1974, first scanned on a pack of Wrigley's gum no less, was the moment that grocery shopping became data. Before this, stores tracked sales by hand, by eye, or with cash register buttons. But now, every beep is a record, every purchase a point of reference, every item a tiny digital confession. You walk through the aisles with your cart, unaware that someone in the back office already knows how much pasta was sold today. They know Tuesday mornings are slower. They know people who buy peanut butter usually buy jelly. They know you, not by name, not yet, but by pattern. And pattern is power. This new system makes inventory seamless. If a box of cereal sells, the system subtracts it. When stock drops below a certain number, it sends a message. A truck delivers more. Shelves stay full. Supply becomes just in time. And that's where the magic happens. The part you don't see in the basement of this store, or maybe in a data center 3 states away, a silent army of computers, scanners, and scheduling software ensures that the milk is always cold and the eggs are rarely out of stock. You push your cart down the frozen foods aisle, and the lights flicker on automatically. Motion sensors. Efficiency. Behind those frosted doors, products arranged not just by category but by sales velocity, profit margin, and consumer psychology. This is the era when the supermarket becomes a spreadsheet with a floor plan. And you're part of the equation. You pass a display of canned soup, 4 brands lined up like contestants. Only one of them is scanned often enough to earn its spot. The others are at risk. Every beep is a vote. You don't know that, but the soup company does. You head to the checkout. There's a line, but it moves faster now. The clerks don't memorize prices anymore. They just scan and bag. The receipt prints instantly. It's longer than your arm. It knows too much. You glance at the bottom. There's a suggestion. Try our new pasta sauce on aisle 5. That's not a coincidence. The system is starting to think ahead. Historians still debate whether automation saved supermarkets or stripped them of soul. What's not up for debate is that it made them smarter. It reduced waste. It improved restocking. It let stores grow bigger, faster, cleaner. You push your cart into the parking lot, receipt fluttering. You don't realize that every item you bought is already accounted for. That somewhere in a server room, a graph just shifted slightly. A shelf in a warehouse just got updated. All because you bought salsa. You get into your car, turn the key, think about how easy it was, how normal it feels now. But rewind the tape just a few decades, and your entire experience would have looked like witchcraft. Machines talking to machines. Prices changing automatically. Stock replenishing itself like a magic trick. This is the invisible store. The one that doesn't shine or shout. The one that runs underneath. It doesn't care about lace curtains or tiled ceilings. It doesn't peddle glamour. Calculates. And yet, it's still built around you, your routines, your cart, your impulses, your barcode scanning hands. You wonder briefly what's next. What could possibly make this more efficient? But for now, the door closes, the bag crinkles in the passenger seat, and your groceries. Fresh, cold, calculated, sit beside you. Bought, tracked, and logged. The beep rings in your ears all the way home. You don't grab a cart. You don't feel the chill of the dairy aisle. You don't hear the overhead music or smell the bread that might not even be baking. You're not in the store at all. It's the early 2000s, and for the first time you're shopping for groceries from your computer screen. In your pajamas, one hand on a cup of tea, the other lazily clicking add to cart. Welcome to the era of the invisible supermarket. There are no aisles here, no sticky floors, no free cheese samples. What there is instead, an endless scroll of options, a softly blinking cursor, and an algorithm that knows your favorite brand of mustard. You click on oranges. A drop-down menu asks, Navel or Valencia? How ripe would you like them? Would you like a box of organic spinach with that? Other customers also bought almond milk. Are you, other customers, you pause, nod slightly, at it. Historians call this period the rise of e-commerce grocery retail, and it began quietly, tentatively, with skepticism. Could fresh food be shipped? Could strangers really pick your bananas? You weren't sure, but then a snowstorm hit, or your toddler got the flu, or you just didn't want to deal with parking. And suddenly, having cereal and yogurt arrive at your door in a cardboard box felt like magic. And behind that magic, a logistical miracle. Warehouses optimized with robotics. Cold chain trucks with real-time GPS workers navigating endless shelves not with instincts, but pick lists generated by AI. Each order a miniature ballet of speed, freshness, and substitution. Your oat milk was replaced with almond. Hope that's okay. You don't see any of it. You just see the cart icon go from 3 items to 12. You glance at the top of the screen. There's a banner. Your order will arrive between 3 and 5 p.m. You have become a passenger in the grocery journey. Historians still argue whether online grocery shopping enhances convenience or erodes community. But the experience is unmistakably intimate. There's no aisle 5 anymore. Just you and the screen. No cashier small talk. Just a chip-enabled payment and a confirmation email. And yet, it's not cold. The interface knows your preferences. It remembers your staples. It suggests things you forgot. Sometimes it's creepily right. You click order. You've done it. Groceries on the way. No shoes involved. But this new world isn't just a shift in where you shop. It's a shift in how you think about shopping. The weekly ritual, the Saturday cart push, the bump into neighbors, the careful shelf squeeze of tomatoes, is giving way to microtransactions. A bag of flour ordered at midnight. A pint of ice cream after a bad day. A full shop auto-filled on your phone during your commute. And what's replacing the storefront? Dark stores. You can't walk into them. No signage. No price tags. Just rows and rows of shelves and pickers in ergonomic vests moving with algorithmic grace. These aren't stores. They're fulfillment centers optimized for speed, not charm. You get a ping. Your groceries are en route. You open the app and watch the driver's cartoon car creep toward your block. You're not browsing anymore. You're orchestrating. And it's not just groceries. It's takeout, laundry soap, batteries, frozen dumplings, all appearing on your doorstep like a silent chorus line of digital errands done right. The line between home and store has blurred. The checkout lane has become a swipe, a face scan, a fingerprint. The receipt is emailed. The cart disappears. And yet, you miss something just a little. The tactile nudge of a shopping cart. The hum of freezers. The low-grade stress of choosing between 20 kinds of tomato sauce while someone breathes down your neck. You miss people. Even the annoying ones. But you don't miss the parking lot. Or the lines. Or the sudden realization that you forgot eggs after you already bagged everything. The future has trade-offs. You hear the doorbell. Open it. Your groceries have arrived, packed into paper bags by someone you'll never meet. You wave at the retreating car anyway. Habit. Inside, you unpack. Eggs, intact. Bananas, acceptably ripe. Oat milk, as requested. Even the cookies you didn't remember ordering, but you're glad they're here. You sit back down, the screen still open, suggesting more things. a scrollable world of needs and wants. And somewhere in the cloud, a new list forms. A new graph updates. A new algorithm learns that you like pistachios now. The invisible supermarket smiles. The doors don't open because there are no doors. You step into the supermarket of tomorrow, and for a moment you think you're in the wrong place. It's silent, clean, almost too clean. No cashiers, no carts, no music. Just you, a row of artfully arranged produce, and a software in the ceiling that you eventually realize is a sensor tracking your movement. This isn't shopping. This is participating in a system so advanced you can barely see it working. The lights adjust slightly as you step deeper. The floor glows faintly. You pick up a tomato, and somewhere in the cloud, a virtual receipt logs the weight. You put it in your tote. There's no barcode, no scanner, just trust, and a wall of machine vision that sees everything. Welcome to the frictionless store. The checkout-less, cashier-less, almost thoughtless store. Inspired by startups, backed by empires, tested in tech labs. Slowly becoming real. There's a small sign above the eggs. Just walk out when you're done. You blink. Surely not. But yes. Historians are already speculating what this moment will mean. Is it the peak of convenience or the death of human interaction? The culmination of a century's worth of retail automation? Or the beginning of something that no longer resembles shopping at all? You walk slowly past the beverage shelf. As you reach out, a small screen above the cooler updates in real time. $3.49, cold brew coffee selected. You haven't even committed to it, just hovered. The shelf knows. The shelf remembers. You move into the center of the store. There's still merchandising, yes, arrangements of snacks designed to tempt, but it's quieter now. Minimalist, understated, almost like an art gallery of grocery essentials. There's no need to rush. No one's waiting. There's no line. You walk past a screen mounted on a sleek pillar. It flashes a question. Forgot your usual oat milk? Aisle 4. You haven't said a word. The system has learned you. It's not just about what's in stock. It's about anticipating patterns, offering solutions before you ask, removing as much friction as possible until the act of buying becomes a passive decision. You feel a pang. The nostalgia of molasses barrels and cackling clerks, of chalkboard prices and end-of-aisle gossip. The bustle, the human noise, all replaced with ambient lighting and soft sensors. And yet, there's something calming here. You don't have to compare 20 brands of pasta. The system knows what you usually pick. It nudges you gently. No shouting. No flashing sale signs. Just suggestions, gliding in your periphery. You round the corner to the produce display, each apple perfectly spaced like it's waiting for a headshot. There's no scale, no codes to punch, just weightless transaction. You place 3 in your bag. Your digital total updates silently. You don't even check the price, because you trust it now. This isn't just shopping. It's relationship maintenance with a platform that knows you better than your extended family. You head toward the exit. There's no beep, no scan. Just a brief pause as the door recognizes your presence, your purchases, your payment method already tethered to your account. You walk out, and as you do, your phone buzzes. Gently, a receipt arrives. Itemized, accurate, quiet. You sit in your self-driving car. Place the tote beside you. Smile. Inside, apples, oat milk, cold brew, a single chocolate bar that the system offered as your usual Thursday treat. You didn't say yes. You didn't even notice. You just accepted. Historians will look back on this moment as both marvel and caution. The ultimate convenience, the quietest transaction, the complete dematerialization of the grocery experience. And yet, the food is still food. The act is still ancient. You gathered. You provided. You brought something home. But now, you did it without pause, without touch, without speech. You're not a shopper anymore, you're a presence. And the store, a mirror, softly lit, offering what it thinks you'll love. No carts, no lines, no weight in your wallet. Just patterns in the AI art. So now you're home. You place the apples gently in the bowl. The cold brew hums in the fridge. The oat milk rests like a promise on the second shelf. The chocolate bar waits patiently for later. Maybe after dinner, maybe after you forget you bought it. The light in your kitchen is warm, quiet, the floor cool under your feet. There's no receipt in your pocket, no coins to put away, only the soft settling of a space that has been stocked, and a mind that has followed a ritual older than cities. Because for all the changes, stone tablets to barcode beeps, ration coupons to smart sensors, shopping has always been about one simple human truth: bringing something back to the place where you rest. Your hands may no longer carry baskets woven from reed, but they still reach, select, gather. You've wandered through bazaars. You've walked marble-floored department stores. You've scanned barcodes and tapped apps. You've stood under neon lights and moved unseen through cloud-connected shelves. And now, you can sleep. Let your breath slow. Let the weight of history settle softly around you, like blankets woven with every market you've ever walked. The tomatoes are ripe. The tea is steeping. The journey is done, and tomorrow, the store will still be there, somewhere, whether under a vaulted arcade or behind a glowing screen. Ready. Waiting. For you.